Hey everyone, Steph and Superfloof here. Welcome back to our channel. And today we're covering part 2 of our multiple part series covering a step-by-step tutorial on making this Tasks and Announcements Power App. Just to get you caught up, in part 1, I'll put the link up here, we covered the Power App settings to make an app responsive, we created the header bar, and we created a menu. Today we're going to cover step-by-step how to create responsive galleries that not only adapt to different devices, but also pop with eye-catching SVG graphics. So whether you're designing for smartphones, tablets, or desktops, this app and the steps I'm going to show you will have you covered. Just to go over it again, this real-world use case is an announcement and tasks app for a store with locations around the US. The client needed a way not only to let the stores know about upcoming changes, but a way to assign tasks to those stores and know when they were completed. Since this app will not only be used by corporate, but also by in-store employees and managers, it had to be responsive. Whether you're a seasoned developer or just starting out, this step-by-step tutorial will help you take your skills to the next level. If you're excited to learn and explore, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you get notified about parts 3, 4, 5, and maybe 6 of this tutorial. Now, without further ado, let's jump right in and get started. Here we are on my desktop in our working app. NinjaFloof has joined Superfloof and I, so we have proper supervision. The first thing that we need to do is we have our main container. It's set up vertically, so everything will stack vertically. And we need to add another vertical container for the first half, the alerts, and then we'll add another one for the tasks. So container, and we want it to be vertical. And since I'm here, I'm going to add a second one as well for the tasks. Oh, and you see what I did there. I had the container selected, so it added it within this other one. It's not what we want. I could cut or I could delete. I'm going to cut it, come back here, and just paste. Now we have our 2 vertical containers, and because they're auto height, we don't have to worry about setting any heights for this. I've gone ahead and renamed our 2 containers so we don't get confused, because now we have to start planning out how we want our app to look. If we look at our existing app, we have an SVG here on the right indicating that there are more announcements than just the 3 we're seeing. If you look here, it shows that we have 4. But I really wanted to drive home the point that we have 3 showing, but there are additional. So we want to stagger or layer everything horizontally within the vertical container. So we have to add another container within a container. Really simple, you saw how I did it. We're going to insert horizontal container. Now that we have that, everything within the vertical container will go horizontally. Now let's insert our vertical gallery. Now we don't need any of the stuff that comes in with this one, so I'm going to just go ahead and expand and delete everything. Now in our first video, I'll link it up here, we created our collection. So let's go back and look at that really quick because we have to work around some delegation errors. Currently the alerts are only 4, but it could grow over time. So as we scroll down in my onStart function of the app, because we only need to collect this once, we are getting our open and closed alerts or announcements. Now announcements is long. I accidentally started calling it alerts and it kind of stuck. So I annotated that in the comments for anyone else that ever has to work on the app. So we're creating a collection called Open Alerts, and we're filtering our announcements or alerts SharePoint list for everything that has an expiration date of greater than or equal to today. And then we're going to sort that by the most recent ones. We're going to sort that by the one that's expiring most recently. Now, because on the back end, district managers or managers may want to look at what has been closed or what has expired, we're also creating a collection of closed alerts, just reversing the logic, everything that expired less than, not equal to today. So we're going to tie it to that collection. So minimize this back. Now, if I select the gallery, right here, I can select Open Alerts. Now, the next thing that we need to do is rename the gallery. So we're going to call this Gal Open Alerts. Again, announcements, I know, but just stick with me here. Now, this gallery is part of a container. It's part of another container and all the way up that has a white background. We want all of these alerts to look like their own individual items. So what we're going to do is go all the way back up here to the main portion, not the main portion here, the main container, and we're going to select the fill color. And I'm going to set that to transparent. And you see here the header container stayed white because I had set that as white. So now we go back to our gallery, and what we're going to do is we're going to leverage a button here. And I'll show you why here in a sec. So I insert a button. Now you see how the button has a very nice border radius. That's the functionality we're looking for. So let's select the button. We don't want it to just be floating there, so we're going to make it dynamic. I'm going to set the X to 0 and the Y to 0. Now we want to make it fill the space that is provided. We don't want it to be static. So if we come up to the width and start typing in parent.width, you would think that would be the right one. However, you see how it's filling the entire container. What we actually want to have here is parent.template width. That will have it fill the size of the template. Now it still looks funny, we'll get to that in a minute, but we're going to do the same for the height as well. Click on height and then enter parents, or just P, and you see how it's helping us out. It's not the right one though, it's filling the whole gallery. We want it to be template height. So there we have it. Now we don't want the text, so I'm going to click here and I'm going to come up here and just delete it. Again, multiple ways of doing things in Power Apps thanks to Microsoft. Now if I hold down the Alt key, I can preview the app. It's like playing it but not playing it. And you see here how if I roll over or click, we have different functionality. So we need to not only change the color of the button itself to white, but we need to make sure that we get the hover and the click properties as well. So if I click on color here, it's going to give me the text color. That's not what we want to change. Let's rename the button to button background. Now we're going to go to advanced. And within the advanced menu here, we can search. So I'm going to enter F and just put in fill. And now we have the fill property right here. If I click on it, on the right menu, you see here how it's showing us the blue. Not what we want though, we want it to be white. Now up until a few months ago, you could have just typed white in here. Microsoft made a change, so now it's colored.white. Now what's fabulous is we have the hover fill right here as well. Now if I select on that one and we come up here, you see it's giving us a blue. I could put color.white in here, but let's say we change the fill color later on. Let's say we want to make it a gray color. We would have to then come in here and change this one as well. I'm a lazy IT person. I want to make a change once. So instead, we're going to do self.fill. And basically what's that saying is whatever the fill is, make the hover fill that with a negative 20%. So it's doing a color fade for us. It's all we have to do. The click is already white, so we're good. Now you see here how it is a vertical gallery, so everything is going this way. We're going to change that, but you also notice how everything is so tight. So the first thing we want to do is come in here and give it some template padding. And then from our existing app, I'm going to copy a bit of code and then we'll talk about it. Right now the wrap count is 1. So if we were to play this app in a mobile device, we're scrolling down. It's not the behavior that the client wanted, so we're going to change this. We're going to select the wrap count and come up here and enter a switch statement. So now, if the screen size is small, we want it to show 1, or wrap 1. If the screen size is medium, 2, and if it's large, 3. The client only wanted to show 3, remember, and then have an arrow showing more. We know there's 4, which is why we're getting 4 boxes now. So how are we only going to show the 4 data sources, or the 4 open items? We're going to use the first N functionality here, FARSTN, and that's going to give us the first of the numbered records and from our collection, and we only want the first 3. Making some progress here. Now you see the size of the button is still too small. It's not filling the space the way that we want, and that's because the template size isn't quite right. So if we select the gallery and come up here to the drop down, we're going to find the template size. And template size right now is 104. Not exactly what we want. Let's make that bigger. We're going to make it 250, giving us more of the size that we're looking for. Now we can start building out within here our stacked elements. Now again, for this, we're going to use containers, non-responsive containers. Now containers, here we go. Now that put it outside of where we want, and that's pretty, I do that all the time. So I'm going to select it and cut it. Now go back into the gallery, select the pencil, and paste it there. Now we have the non-responsive container within the gallery within the responsive container. So that's going to give us the functionality that we're looking for. Now, I personally have a naming convention that I follow. For things like this, I'm going to start it with line 1. It's the first line, container. Now the width for this, we want to be dynamic, right? We want it to fill the space as well. Let's set the height to 65. And the width, let's not have it be 418. Let's have it be the parent.template width again. So if I start typing P, it gives me the parent width. You see how it fills the screen? We just want it to do the template width. So I'm going to move my mouse over and start typing template. There we have it. Now that we have our first button, we don't want it to have a drop shadow. That's one of the new things that Microsoft's done. We don't want that. Now that I've got the container, we have the header and then we have the text. So I'm going to create a second one here. Just copying and pasting. And this one, we don't want to have a Y of 40. We want it to reference, this is going to be line 2. We want it to reference the line 1 container. So we want the Y for this container to be line 1 container dot Y plus line 1 container dot height. So now we're stacking them right on top of each other. We also want to move this down just for ease of use. Move backwards, there we go. Now, line 2 container. Now we're going to copy that one and create one more for the text. And I did it again, so I'm going to delete that one, select the pencil, paste the third one. Move that one down, send it backwards, send it backwards, and you see I can rename it from here as well, so let's do it from here. And instead of referencing line 1 container, we're going to reference line 2 container. And there we have the containers. So now we can start building out the stacked elements within our stacked elements within everything. Lots of fun. Hang on to your shorts. Here we get into the SVG portion of it. Here we are back on the final app. For reference, our line 1 container consists of 4 different elements. We have an SVG on the right, we have an SVG on the left, which is the symbol for the alerts or the announcements. We have the actual text, and then we have a background as well. So let's go back to our working app and start with an SVG. Now, when we did part 1, I covered SVGs, but just really quick, let's go over a couple of things. Here we are on Bootstrap or getbootstrap.com. I'll put the link in the comments. And this is where I get most of my SVGs from. Now, if we wanted to, and we're going to, we are going to do a more. And here's the 3 dots that we're looking at. Let's select that one. And this is why we use SVGs. It consists of HTML. So no matter how big or how small we get, if it's a large desktop or a small mobile phone, we don't get any fuzziness. It renders perfectly every time. Plus, the colors are set within the icon, so we can dynamically control that in the app as well. I am not sponsored by Bootstrap, I just like their content. So here we have the HTML for this one. I'll show you how we handled this from video 1. I'll put a link to it up there. So we go back to our onStart function of the app, and here we have all of our SVGs. I have a collection for them, and the one that we're going to use here is more. So I've taken the code from Bootstrap, I put it into my Notepad++. If you work in computers, you need to have Notepad++. Not sponsored, just a very good program. But you could do it in Notepad if you like as well. You have to take the text from Bootstrap, which is right here, and you can just click the copy icon. But you have to change the double quotes to single quotes for it to work within Power Apps. So here we have the more with single quotes. Now notice here we have a fill of a current color. That's where we can dynamically set. Now also in my app on start, we have our primary color and our primary color text. The reason that we created primary color text is specifically for the SVGs. So let's look in line content 1, let's add the image. So I go up here to insert, image. And because we're using a non-responsive container in our responsive container, you see I can position this wherever I like. That's how you get the functionality within responsive design. Well, where do we want this? We want this to be at the very far right of the container always, all by itself. So we're not going to manually set that because that variable could shift. So where do we want this to be? We want it to be line 1 container dot x plus, I'm going to copy that, line 1 container width, and you see how that bumps it off, but so now we want to take off self.width. So that gives us the icon, and it's always going to stay at the right corner of the container. So it's a little big. I'm going to make it a height of 45 and a width of 45. So now we have square, but you see how it bumped up there all the way. We're going to give it a little bit of padding, and I'm manually putting in the padding, I know, but we want this to be consistent all the way across. I want it to give it a Y of 10. I know it's static, but that's what works really well here. Now let's give it an image, right? This is going to be the image alert more. And for the image, I'm going to paste in from the existing app. Let's look at this together. So the code for an SVG would consist, paste an SVG in here. This is what the code would look like. So we obviously have some errors going on because I just plopped it in here for you to see. But because I have the SVGs in a collection, instead what we're doing is a bit more dynamic. We're doing a substitute on a lookup of our collection. The icon name is more, the icon data, and then we're also doing a substitution on the current color and setting it to secondary color text. I covered this all in a lot more detail in the first video, but if you have any questions, comment below and I will respond. Also, please remember to subscribe. That way you get notified about all the other upcoming videos, 2, 3, 4, or 3, 4, 5, 6, and however many we get. So there we have the SVG in our app. Since the text and the next SVG are white, let's enter the rectangle. So we could go to insert and rectangle, but I'm just going to paste it in from the other app. Same everything. So I select the container and I hit paste. And there we have our rectangle. Let's look at the code behind it. So the position, our X position here. So we're doing another switch statement. If the home screen size is small, our X is 0. We want it to bump all the way to the left. If it's medium, 10, and if it's a large screen, it's 20. So that gives us a bit of padding that adjusts depending on the screen size. Our width, similarly, is going to change as well. So it's going to take our parent width, and it's going to take the image alert more width, and then we're subtracting itself times 2. So we're giving it some padding. It doesn't change necessarily on the screen size, but it's changing dynamically with the space that is given. Now let's do another image and the text, because we are going to have some variations here, and this is one of those tricksy things. Let's start with the alert, and that's going to be another image just like this one, so we could copy this one, but I'm going to paste in from my other app, and you see it paste in the wrong spot. So I'm going to delete that. Select an element within the container and hit paste, and there we have it. So the image here is going to be a lookup for alerts, and here I just have the RGBA for white. But you see how we have the quotes. So if we look at the more, we have secondary color text. That's why within our app on start, we have this variable set with the quotes. If we look at this one here for reference, there you have it. Pretty cool. So we look at the X for here. So here we're referencing, because we've already done all the logic for the bar, we can just reference the X and use that one. Again, lazy admin. I don't want to have to do all that crazy code again if I don't have to. Now let's grab the text, and this is just going to be alert, a label. So if I select the rectangle, something within the container, I could go up here and go to text label. But I'm just going to paste in what we have, and then we'll go over it together. Took it a minute, but there we have the announcement label. So what do we have going on here? If we look at the X, we're referencing the image, right? We want everything to reference something else. We really don't want anything hard-coded. We also have the Y here. There's one additional thing that we need to do with fonts or anything with fonts. We do need to have a switch statement in the font size. And that's because it looks good on our computer here. But if we were to render this on a cell phone, 16 is probably going to be too large, especially with how long announcements is. If you recall from video 1, the text here we actually have truncating to keep it large, as well as modifying the font size. So the next one we have here is line container 2, and what that consists of is just a label of the title of this item. So let's grab that label and pull it in here. There we go. We're leveraging the same font size functionality. If it's small screen, then 12. If it's a medium screen, 14. And if it's large, 16. Same thing we did with the width, right? We're leveraging the parent.width because it's within the container. And then for our left padding, we're doing some switching as well. This is the title of the announcement. We don't want it to be different than the rectangle, pretty close to it. And then we need to adjust the size of the container here because it's a little too large for what we're looking at. So we're going to change this to a 45. Make it tighten up a little bit because the meat and potatoes of the announcement is going to be this section here, which is line 3 container. And in our SharePoint list, this is a enhanced text field. So we can't use a normal HTML or a normal label. We have to leverage an HTML label. So if we come up here to HTML text, you see we can do all of the HTML programming that we want without having to have it look bad. So I'm going to paste in what we have, and because it's enhanced text, it looks good. Now if I were to take and just do a regular text label, just for fun, and do the same thing, you see here how we have the divs, we have the strongs, and it's not rendering properly. We also have some cars in there, some CHARs. Cars, chars, however you want to say it. So get rid of that. And what we want is HTML instead. Let's play the app. Now we have exactly what the client was looking for. If we look at it on a mini, and if we rotate it, we're able to see more along the lines of what we're looking for. We still have a little bit of finessing we have to do, but that just takes some testing. So if we go back to window size and close out of this, we need to add that icon over here for more information. Now, because we have this as a horizontal container, we just need to insert an image. And automatically it bumps everything over for us, which is great. We don't want it to be the top of the container. We want it to be at the middle of the container. Let me grab the code for it. It's going to be an SVG. Again, because it automatically will resize for us. It looks a little big to me, so let's make it a different height and width. Now, we don't need this to show up if the screen size isn't large enough for it, right? So here we're going to leverage a couple of things we've already done. So if we look at the visible, let's do this. We only want to show more if the open alerts are greater than 3. There may only be 1 or 2 open alerts at any given time, so we don't need to show it for that instance. Now also, from video 1, which I'll link up above, we have this dashboard button. This dashboard button here only shows, and we look at the visible here, if the screen size is set to a certain thing. Again, lazy admin. I already have the logic. Why reinvent the wheel? Just reference what you already have. So there we have the first of our 2 galleries. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Let us know your thoughts, questions, and any topics you'd like us to cover in future videos. Sharing is caring, so don't forget to share this tutorial with your fellow Power Apps enthusiasts. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep rocking Power Apps like a true pro. See you in the next video.